This sketchbook took me 8 years to fill, but that's not the most interesting part. The most interesting part isn't even in the sketchbook. Let me tell you about the place where I drew my most important portraits. Years ago, while I was a student at LSU, I cared far more about looking wealthy than becoming wise. I was not wealthy. I was a poor student, barely able to pay tuition. But I wanted watches to match my shoes and umbrellas to match my watches. These desires, plus my approach to acquiring these things, landed me in jail twice. The first time I was released, but I was stubborn and determined to continue to execute the backwards plan. And the second time, it was clear to the authorities that I was hard-headed. The bail was more than I had, and I was processed. I spent many hours in the holding cell, but after they took my clothes and shoes, they gave me an orange suit and a bag with a bar of soap and other essentials. They escorted me to the actual prison. It was a long room with about 10 bunk beds on each side. Someone asked me for a cigarette, and I said, "I don't smoke." I thought it was co-ed jail because two of the women there looked just like men. I noticed that some of the women were crocheting, and I like to crochet too, but they were crocheting with pen caps. You know, the kind of plastic cap that comes with a big pen, and they bent the part that clips to your shirt back into a hook, and they were crocheting with that. I don't remember how the drawing conversation got started, but I was noticing that there was no deodorant or underwear in the bag, and I was asking, "How do you get these things?" It was explained to me that someone on the outside had to send these items to you. I must have been asked what I like to do, and I said draw. Someone asked if I could draw them, and I said I could. After I said I could, they started bringing me sheets of paper and little golf pencils, and I understood that they were not allowed to have anything that could be used as a weapon. It was clear also that sheets of paper were hard to get. So I drew the first woman, and the likeness was spot on. I surprised myself. Before this, I found getting likenesses quite difficult. It would end up being a drawing of a person, but not a drawing of that particular person. After she showed her portrait to the other women, there was a line forming of those who wanted their portraits done. They began to argue about who was next. I started thinking about how getting along with a couple dozen argumentative women would be difficult. I was in the middle of drawing the third or fourth woman when my name was called for being bonded out. My father had a friend who was willing to put his house up for collateral. I never saw those women again. I was there long enough to eat the terrible food and to contemplate having no art supplies, no clothes, and a life of being restricted. I left there with a change of mind. It was the beginning of the end of having upside down priorities. It didn't happen overnight, but I was determined not to get into any more trouble, to pay restitution, and to finish probation without incident. That experience never became a drawing. You won't find it if you flip through these pages, but you'll find the woman who walked out of that prison determined to become someone different. Every drawing after that was made by her. Now she is a woman who is no longer trying to become a person the world wanted. The scripture says, "Don't copy the behavior and customs of this world, but let God transform you into a new person by changing the way you think. Then you will learn to know God's will for you, which is good and pleasing and perfect." Romans 12:2, NLT version. By the time this sketchbook came into my life, My goals had changed completely, and the way I think about mistakes has also changed. Years later, I realized the change had reached my sketchbooks too. I no longer felt the need to make every page impressive. I stopped treating them like evidence of my talent and started treating them as evidence of my life. This sketchbook took me 8 years to fill, but my sketchbooks aren't a performance. They're laboratories, playgrounds, visual diaries, and evidence. Evidence that God can change a person slowly, one page, one decision, one day at a time. Thank you for watching.